Imagine waking up tomorrow and your bank account balance has multiplied by 100. That's the promise being repeated in thousands of videos, forum posts, and social media groups right now. The claim: JPMorgan and the Federal Reserve have supposedly confirmed a massive revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, of the Vietnamese dong. Screenshots circulate. Countdown timers appear. Group chats fill up with excitement. But here's the question almost nobody stops to ask before hitting subscribe and waiting for their fortune. Has any of this actually been confirmed by JPMorgan or the Federal Reserve themselves? Not by a YouTube channel, not by an insider source, not by a Telegram group admin, by the actual institutions named in the claim. Stick with this video because we're going to trace this story back to where it actually started, walk through how currency exchange rates really work, and show you exactly what evidence does and doesn't exist. By the end, you'll be able to evaluate any RV claim you come across for yourself, using facts, not hope. Let's start at the beginning. The idea of a dinar revaluation, often shortened to RV, isn't new. It traces back to the early 2000s, after the Iraqi dinar lost most of its value following the 2003 conflict. Around that time, some investors began buying large quantities of Iraqi dinar at very low prices, betting that Iraq's economy would eventually stabilize and the currency would rise dramatically in value, potentially making them wealthy overnight. That basic hope has never gone away. For more than 2 decades, a rotating cast of online personalities, forums, and dinar gurus have claimed that the revaluation is imminent, sometimes within days, sometimes within hours. The Vietnamese dong has been swept into similar claims more recently, marketed alongside the dinar as a second get-rich-quick currency opportunity. What's different about this specific wave of claims is the branding. Instead of vague promises from anonymous insiders, these newer videos and posts attach the names of major, trusted institutions, JPMorgan Chase, the Federal Reserve, to lend the claim instant credibility. After all, if a name that big is behind it, why would you question it? That's exactly the psychological hook we need to slow down and examine. So how would a currency revaluation actually work if it were real? Let's break it down simply, because understanding the mechanics is the fastest way to spot when something doesn't add up. A currency's exchange rate reflects a country's economic fundamentals. Things like foreign currency reserves, trade balances, inflation, government debt, and market confidence. Exchange rates do shift over time, but they typically move gradually based on economic data, central bank policy, and market trading activity. For a currency to jump instantly from a fraction of a cent to several dollars, which is what these RV claims describe, would require an economic transformation of a scale never before seen in modern history. It's not simply a decision one bank or government can flip like a switch. And critically, if JPMorgan or the Federal Reserve had genuine, verified knowledge of such a move, this would be extraordinary global financial news, reported simultaneously by Reuters, Bloomberg, The Wall Street Journal, and every major financial outlet on Earth. Not first announced through a YouTube video or Telegram channel. That absence of independent, verifiable news coverage is the single most important clue in this entire story. And we're going to come back to that. Now let's look directly at the evidence, or rather, the lack of it. No official statement from JPMorgan Chase confirming a dinar or dong revaluation exists on the bank's own investor relations or newsroom pages. No official statement from the Federal Reserve confirming this claim exists either on its press release archive or its public communications. In fact, the institution that actually governs the dinar's exchange rate, the Central Bank of Iraq, has repeatedly done the opposite of confirming a revaluation. On multiple occasions, including a public statement issued in late November 2025, the Central Bank of Iraq firmly denied rumors of any change to the exchange rate, calling the speculation an attempt to disrupt markets and undermine economic stability. That's not a minor detail. It's the actual central bank, on the record, denying the exact rumor this video's title is built around. Both JPMorgan and the Federal Reserve are named in these claims specifically because their reputations lend automatic trust. But trust isn't the same as verification. When you actually search for the original source of these claims, the pattern becomes very familiar. A screenshot appears, often cropped, sometimes altered, rarely linking back to an actual JPMorgan or Federal Reserve press release. A voice on a video says sources tell me or insiders confirm, without naming a single person who can be held accountable for the claim. The screenshot or claim gets reposted across dozens of channels, and repetition starts to feel like confirmation, even though nothing new has actually been verified. This is worth pausing on because it's a pattern that shows up far beyond currency schemes. When something is repeated enough times across enough channels, our brains start treating repetition as evidence. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. It's not that anyone proved the claim true. It's that hearing it over and over made it feel true. So if there's no real evidence, why does this claim keep resurfacing year after year, currency after currency? Because for some people online, the claim itself is the product. Channels built around dinar and dong RV content often generate revenue directly from the attention the claim creates, through ad revenue, channel memberships, and views, regardless of whether the RV ever happens. Some content in this space also promotes currency exchange businesses, paid insider newsletters, or private groups charging for supposedly exclusive updates. This creates a structural incentive problem worth naming clearly. The person telling you the revaluation is imminent often benefits financially the moment you watch, subscribe, or buy currency, whether or not the event ever occurs. There's little cost to being wrong, and there's a real reward for keeping the excitement alive. That's not necessarily proof of bad intent in every single case, but it's an incentive structure that deserves scrutiny, and it's one everyday viewers rarely get to see laid out this plainly. This pattern hasn't gone unnoticed by regulators, and it isn't hypothetical. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has pursued real enforcement action in this exact space. In one case, the SEC filed a complaint against a Utah-based promoter who, between 2009 and 2016, told investors he had special access to invest in Iraqi dinar and oil contracts, promising returns as high as 15,000%, and telling them profit was not a matter of if, but when. Dozens of investors put money into that scheme before regulators intervened. In another case, federal prosecutors pursued a large Georgia-based dinar dealer, seeking to seize luxury cars, airplanes, and properties tied to a business that prosecutors said was built around promising investors a currency revaluation that never came. State regulators have issued similar public warnings. The Alabama Securities Commission has published investor alerts describing the dinar opportunity as a long-running scam pitched as a can't-miss investment. The Texas State Securities Board and Washington State's Department of Financial Institutions have both published consumer warnings describing the same core pattern. Promoters selling dinar with promises of guaranteed, life-changing profits once a revaluation supposedly happens. The common warning signs regulators point to are strikingly consistent. Promises of guaranteed, extraordinary returns, pressure to act quickly before a supposed deadline, reliance on secrecy or insider access, and a lack of any verifiable statement from the institutions being named. If you ever want to check a claim like this yourself, your state securities regulator and the SEC's own investor alert pages are good places to start. Behind every one of these claims is something easy to forget when we're talking about exchange rates and institutions. Real people. Some individuals have spent years, in some cases, life savings, acquiring large amounts of dinar or dong, holding on to the belief that a transformative payday is just around the corner. When that payday doesn't arrive, the financial toll is real. But so is the emotional one. Waiting years for a windfall that never comes can affect relationships, retirement plans, and mental well-being, especially for people who felt they'd found a secure, insider opportunity rather than a speculative gamble. This isn't about mocking anyone who's believed this claim. The messaging is designed to be persuasive. Trusted brand names, emotional urgency, and communities that reinforce belief. It's a well-built narrative. Recognizing that is the first step toward protecting yourself and the people you care about from it. So what should you do if you're interested in currency markets, international investing, or simply building long-term financial security? Start with regulated, transparent options. Diversified index funds, official foreign currency exchange through licensed institutions, and general financial education from accredited, licensed financial advisors all offer paths to growing wealth that are grounded in verifiable, regulated systems, not unconfirmed rumors. If international currency exposure genuinely interests you, licensed forex brokers and regulated financial products exist specifically for that purpose, with actual oversight and accountability behind them. And more broadly, whenever you encounter a financial claim, no matter how big the names attached to it are, a simple habit can protect you. Go directly to the source. If JPMorgan or the Federal Reserve genuinely confirmed something this significant, you would find it published on their own official websites and echoed instantly by major financial news organizations. If you can't find it there, that silence is telling you something important. So let's return to where we started. Is there any confirmed evidence from JPMorgan or the Federal Reserve about a dinar or dong revaluation? Based on everything traceable and verifiable, the answer is no. What exists instead is a decades-old claim, repackaged with trusted institutional names, spreading through a media ecosystem where repetition often gets mistaken for proof. And it's a claim the actual Central Bank of Iraq has directly denied. If you found this breakdown useful, consider sharing it with someone who may have come across these claims. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer someone isn't a hot tip. It's a reason to pause and check the source. And if you want to keep building the skills to spot financial claims like this one, subscribe because we'll keep pulling these stories apart, one verified fact at a time. This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice.